Welcome back, mere mortalites, to a fun little conversation I'm going to have today around a challenge that I took on just recently, 2025 calorie challenge. No, not a challenge in 2025, but a 2025 single day calorie challenge. And I'm going to talk to you about it because it was interesting. So obviously it has been done, let's just say, give you a little telltale sign of how I went. But I've got a couple of things I want to talk about. I'm going to break it down. It's going to be, what is it? Why do it? Did I do it? What were the learnings? And there's a couple of subsections around that. So let's explain the what is it. What the hell is this 2025 calorie challenge? Well, I got a message from a mate of mine. I didn't even know about this. I even tried searching it around YouTube, social media. Is this something that already existed? I'm not even sure where this came up for him. I've seen sometimes people say you're going to run the year in terms of running 2025 kilometers over a year. Yuck, a bit too much. I'm going to run 25 kilometers for the fact that it's 2025. Okay, it's a little bit more doable, let's just say. Kind of. But for me, in the way that my mate messaged me, said, hey, how about it's 2025 calories that you have to do in one go. Now, he in particular wanted to specify it as I'm going to do it in one particular device. For him was the assault bike. And I went, oh man, yuck. Now the premise of it was, do it the day before New Year's Day. I didn't do that. I was like, okay, from a timing perspective, it's going to take me, however long it's going to take me. I believe it took him 4 hours and 40 minutes or something like that. Something ridiculous, right? And now, me personally, I don't have 4.5 hours in any particular day to do unless I prioritize the sort of challenge maximally. I'm going to do it. So straight away, I kind of thought, okay, how am I going to do this? But let me scope it. So what is it? Basically, the challenge was, can I do 2025 calories in one go? So in one go as part of some sort of domain of movement of exercise. Recalling back, so a couple of reflections that I can say is, I've done this a few times in my life where if I go back through my stats, I've done 2,500, 3,000 calorie active days. One day, I believe I played tennis for almost 4 hours. There was a couple of sessions where long runs and then did other things. And so collectively across the day, it was, 2,000, 3,000 calories active, but never, perhaps maybe once or twice have I done something like that before. In any case, I thought, hey, this sounds like a good challenge. Let's do that. So yeah, that's basically what it is. Do 2025 calories in one go in one particular domain. So I'll leave it at that. That was the challenge, right? So let's talk about why do it. So why in the hell would you do this, right? Kind of, if you listen to us for a while now, and if you're listening to us, you're probably more towards this than you are against it. But I like a challenge. We like a challenge, right? The immortalites out there, they like to be a bit of a challenge. I understand that we're not absolute top of the world, top 0.001% beyond a mere mortal. Maybe we aspire to get to that, but we're mere mortals, right? We know what our capabilities are. This is something that's probably at the upper threshold, upper bound for me personally. I'm not a professional sports person. I like to be fit. I like to be healthy. I like to be a flexible, movable dad. So to me, I went, this kind of falls in the challenge, doability, enough of a push, but not ridiculous. I'm going to pay for it. Not sitting here saying, I'm going to do a 10,000 calorie workout. No, one, I don't have time. Two, doesn't sound as interesting. Three, I'm probably going to fail straight out the bat. That's not going to happen. So it's got to be realistic as well. And that's why I do it. The aspect of it for me was, it seemed challenging enough that it seems difficult, but it also doesn't seem impossible. Reading Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday recently. That kind of view of it's an obstacle that I can see over the hump almost. Like if I skirt around it, I'll reflect back on something I've done. Yeah, doable. So that's why I wanted to do it. And maybe perhaps you want to try it out as well. The third point, did I do it? God damn, did I actually do this? This is the crux of it all, folks. No, I did not. And the reason for why I didn't do it was, there's a few reasons, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. One, I just didn't give it enough time. So I believe I did this on the 3rd. It was a couple of days after New Year's Day. And I gave myself as much extra time as I could have to do it, or I thought I could have. I chose running on the treadmill as my poison to try and get the 2025 calories by doing some rough calculations on how much I was expending in terms of efforts than previously. I went, okay, I'll need about, maybe around 25 kilometers, maybe a little bit more at an incline. Yeah, it's going to be 2 and a bit hours, maybe approaching 3 hours. Okay, so that particular day, I got up super, super early, got down to the gym. Again, I've got other responsibilities to do. I didn't really have the ability to just say, hey, I'm going to just knock out 3 hours, 4 hours in the middle of the day. No, I also didn't want to impose myself in this particular challenge to take away time from my daughter. I just thought, look, I'm going to try and do it around that time. So from the get-go, I probably hamstrung myself in that regard. Would I say that I knew I'd hamstrung myself? Partly. I kind of thought, look, I'm going to have just enough time to be able to get to the next place that I need to go. And let's see how it kind of proceeds from there. And I was prepared to shift around some things to try and make it work. In the end, though, and I'll sort of describe it through, got on the treadmill. Everything felt pretty fine. I went at a bit of a slower pace than I would usually do on my runs. So it was nice and gradual. Incline was 3-4%. Started at really easy. I believe it was something like 6 minutes 50, 6 minute 40 pace sort of running. Nice and gentle, just walking it through and just continuing it on. Now, kind of fast forwarding as I'm talking through this, I ended up getting to 8 or 9 kilometers. Not too sure exactly how many calories I was, but and I'll talk about it a little bit later around some of the learnings. It felt fine. It felt okay. Now, I've run up to a half marathon before, so 21. Actually, no, that's a lie. I've run 20 kilometers, and back when I was running a couple of months ago, it did feel like it was easy after a lot of weeks of running. Now, the last, let's just say 6 weeks of running has been shorter term and shorter lengths of distance, 5, 6, 7, 8 kilometers. So I ended up getting myself up to 12.2 kilometers of running, and that ended up being 1,200 and something calories, right? And that's where I paused. That's where I stopped. Timing wise, I went, I'm not going to hit this at all, right? I'm not going to get close to it. I think at that point I was 40 minutes away from where I needed to have been. If I moved around some things, maybe I couldn't give myself an extra hour at almost best. But again, it just wasn't going to satisfy the time to meet those calorie demands. So I thought, pause it. I'm not going to do it. Leave it at that. Done and dusted. So technically, in more lights, I did not do the 2025 calorie challenge in the one go. However, I will make this caveat, and it's not to say that I go accomplish it in some other way. But interestingly enough, as part of the rest of the day, there was some housework that I was doing. And that combined with a bit of another workout that I ended up doing actually pushed me way beyond the 2025 calories over the day of active calories. So it really got me thinking around, okay, did I do it? No, not in the way that I set out to do the challenge. Did I accomplish it across the day? Yeah, absolutely, definitely did. And that probably takes me into that fourth. And this is a key part of the conversation. The learning from it, right? Because what you do, why you're doing it, is just as important in some of the learnings that you take away, especially when you fail. A lot of times when we talk about here on the Mere Mortals, you hear us talk about, well, yes, we did this, we did that, success, fantastic. Often, in some videos that I see and some people that I follow, yeah, some of them do talk about some of the failures, the challenges. Nick Bear recently talking about getting hit by a car. For me, it was, this kind of brought out a few learnings behind it, both on the fact of not doing it, but also just in the doing it, in the journey of attempting the obstacle and the learnings that came from that. So I actually broke it down into two sections for the learnings. One, which it was just the shift in mindset around not focusing on the kilometer, so specifically here on the running, but you can expand it into whichever way that you're thinking about it from any other modality or movement, even beyond fitness, where again, for a long time, my focus had been and has been, hey, I'm going to go and run 5 kilometers. I'm going to go and run 7 kilometers. Once upon a time, I did find myself that I was also doing, hey, I want to do 5 kilometers by this exact time. And I wasn't enjoying it. It was more of a pressure point than it was a helping point. So I kind of pulled that back and said, look, just get 5 kilometers done, whatever that might take. Then I've also trialed, as many other people probably have, is the other way around, just saying, just run for 30 minutes, just run for 45 minutes. Also, hey, aim for zone 2, zone 3, heart rate, so something to that effect, right? Here was another one where I've done it previously when I used to do a little bit more CrossFit style workouts, in that I'm just going to focus on the calories that I'm doing as opposed to kilometers or the wattage or the time that I'm doing it. Is just aiming for calories. And a wonderful thing happened in that. So when I was on the treadmill and I was just listening to a video, in fact, it was I think it was Chris Williamson having a chat to, I forget his name, but the individual who runs Founders podcast. And I just kind of got lost in listening to that particular show and just looking at the calories in terms of the progress that I was making. And all of a sudden, it kind of quickly just snowballed up to the 1,200 calories, 12 Ks. And it felt fine. Like I just recognized that, oh, okay, what I'm doing right now, I'm not going to get the time available to do this. If I really thought about it to myself, I probably could have done it, but may not have. I'm not entirely sure. But the fact that I was focusing on calories took me away from the focus of 12 kilometers. And truth be told, right now where I sit in my running journey, running progress, if I said I'm gonna go out and do 12 kilometers of running, in fact, a couple of days prior, I just said I'm gonna go for a long distance run, and I ran 8 kilometers, had the opportunity to do like 3 extra to get back to the car, and I didn't. I actually walked back to the car 3 kilometers. So I know myself, if I'd said, hey, I'm gonna go run 12 kilometers or a long distance, I would have found that mentally more challenging, more of an obstacle than I did actually just focusing on the calories for whatever reason. And I guess that's one of the learnings, right? When you're tackling a challenge, an obstacle, fitness wise or not, there might be some potential benefits in not directly trying to hit the goal that you're after, but hitting for an adjacent. This is, a lot of people talk about it as well in happiness. Don't chase happiness, go adjacent to that. Be motivated by whatever you're passionate about, by something that keeps you hungry and driven. And from that will ensue happiness, as opposed to driving for happiness and chasing that particular aspect, name by name, whatever you want to call it, by title. So that was a bit of a learning for me. And I went, again, that might be a good application of some training days for me, at least in the fitness perspective, where there might be a day where I'm not pushing it 100%. And I'll talk about that as a secondary piece. But it might just be, look, I'm going to go do back and it's going to just be a 60-minute session, whatever 60 minutes means. And I have an idea. I always plan out what my training is. But one day I might not be feeling crash hard for it. Put a podcast on and just do movements. That might be as good for me. And again, extract that, apply it beyond the fitness scape. And the second item I want to talk about for learnings, which is a really interesting one, something just recently that I listened to, and it makes sense, but I wanted to expand on it, which is came up on the Andrew Huberman podcast with Kelly Starrett, I believe. And what they were talking about was how hard, what the intensity that you give and how frequent that is. And the kind of call out there was hitting 80% of the time, 80% efficiency, or giving 80% of your effort, 10% of the time of your workouts. And let's look at this for the year. 10% of the time, give 90% effort. 5% of the time, give 95% effort or intensity. And then 5% of the time, give 100%, give all out effort, RP 10, whatever you want to call it. Now, that translates to, for me, I work out, let's say 300 times in a year. Just throwing the number, might be more, might be less, whatever. I could probably bring up the numbers, but it's irrelevant to this particular piece. 300, if we're talking about, hey, I'm going to do 5%. 5% are going to be at 100% of absolute max RPE 10. Quick numbers, 300, 3 times 5, 15. That's 15 workouts. There's your quick math in my mind. 15 workouts where I'm going to go absolutely balls to the wall. Let's go, leave it all out on the table, whether that is physically, in the fitness perspective, or is it mentally, right? It might not be a ridiculous challenge. I give you a comparison. Kokoda challenge a few years back, 96 kilometers of walking or hiking. Walking, that really changes the dynamic of what it is. Not walking, man, it's hiking up some pretty steep hills and down hills, sand, etc. But if you look at that, I wouldn't have said that the RPE 10 would have applied from a fitness perspective because it wasn't physically that demanding, right? When you consider that it's just hiking, moving at a slower pace in comparison to the maybe quicker velocity of other movements. But mentally, and then the aggregate of what that fitness meant was, oh shit, that was an RPE 10 moment, because you had to combine both the mental aspects of keeping on going and the grit behind it and the perseverance, and then mapped up to the physical aspects where, yes, it begins easy, but it becomes quite difficult in terms of just deterioration of the body, tiredness, etc. So all of that combined, and reviewing that and listening to that and sort of the effort that I just gave as well here in terms of the 2025 calorie challenge, I really like that. I like that concept. There was a bit of a learning there on that challenge that I pursued a couple of days ago. I want to replicate it in some way, shape, or form. And again, not exactly statistically here, but just 14 other times throughout the year. What might that look like? And I will talk about this more in the podcast. It'll be a half marathon. It might be a high rocks event. It might be a really hardcore leg session. It might be an all out powerlifting session, whether it's in a meet or just doing it on my own. Giving a few of those days throughout the year, right? Enough of a cadence, 5% of the time is fantastic. Doing it all the time is going to leave me absolutely broken. If I said, I'm going to do the 2025 calorie challenge tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day, no, that's not going to serve its purpose. It's going to mentally break me down. It's going to physically break me down. I'm not to say that I'm recovering in that way. So the learning was these challenges serve a wonderful purpose. I want to do more of them, but do them at the right cadence. Do them at the right time. Also as well, and I kind of just put this up into the camera as well, but I'll describe it as a bit of a graph that I drew that I kind of liked in terms of how I thought about this, because over the year, the energy and effort aspect of it as well, there's a little dotted dash first across the year, which kind of wanted to visualize for me, if you're going quite hard quite often, what you'll find is that the energy for your workouts or the energy for what you're doing, right? Workouts are anything, whatever aspect you're doing. If you're going too hard, too quickly, too often, and you're peaking too high, what will happen, and I've seen this previously for me as well, is that there is the ensuing crash, and then you go into a bit of a negative lull, probably I'll just say below a neutral aspect of what you would do day to day. That could be sleep regression from stress, from whatever, degradation of some kind, right? Moving towards entropy too quickly. And that sort of wave cycle of hitting peak, crashing, hitting peak, crashing, it can satisfy some aspects of life that you might want to pursue, right? If you're after absolute pinnacle powerlifting lift, or you're getting something out the door of a product for a business and you just need a hammer to get it done, and that's what's needed, okay, that might be what's needed. There's going to be a crash of some kind. There's going to be some regression to the mean, and it's going to go below neutral, and it's going to take a little while to get back. Now, for me, I drew this sort of more darker line where it sort of begins at, let's just say, plus 10 from a graph of plus 100 to negative 100. So I want to start there. Cadence keeps it nice and steady. So that's sort of that 80% of the time I'm giving 80%. Then I'll give, one of those times I'll give it 90%. So it bumps up a little bit of what I'm giving. It stabilizes a little bit. Maybe it drops slightly back down to some sort of energy offer that's still in the positive sense. But what I want to do is, as the year goes by, it just continues to peter along at that more than neutral level. Once often, once every 5%, as I said, you give that 95% or even 100%. Okay, boom, it bumps up a little bit, more gradual, hopefully, than previous balls to the walls effort all the time. But again, it will regress to the mean, yes. But what you want to hope for is, okay, because you're not doing it that often, the body, the mind, the will can recover, and keep yourself at that positive, keep yourself at least where you sort of began in the year or wherever you want to track it, or just ongoing. And then you're able to kind of modulate it up and down. I guess in another way that I'd probably say it is, again, in a graph between plus 100 to minus 100 and 0 being neutral, or if you just did something as neutral, as general as you would, I probably want to sit between the likes of, I want to be a plus 10 to plus 50, right? And modulate between those two. If I really needed to, I don't right now, and I probably don't ever expect myself to push the energy expenditure or energy or the willingness, the mindset to go to plus 100, unless there's an emergency, right? And then you can have another conversation around being ready, being prepared for life for if that necessity is required. And then the benefit of doing it offsets the fact that you're going to go negative. But at least for me, that balance between a plus 10 to plus 50 in terms of energy or effort output, it's probably a good bandwidth in that I can progress really well with that. I can challenge myself. I can do interesting things without finding the negative on the opposite end when you start to regress towards the mean. So all in all, 2025 calorie challenge for me. Did I do it? No. Did I do it over the day? Yes. Would I count it? Not really, but it was fun to challenge, to try it anyways, to go for that particular obstacle. More of the learnings that I found there was really, really interesting, and I really enjoyed that. So, look, if you want to give it a go, lights for all, do it. Fuck it, do it. Do it less, do it more. Challenge yourself. The core concept that I'm saying here is do it because there is an underlying set of benefits and learnings that you might take, whether it might be learning what RPE 10, 9, 8, 7 looks like for you, to determine whether it's something like the body or the mind that goes first, even just to consider beyond the fitness scope, is there aspects of a business, of an idea where you can go, I can challenge myself a little bit more 5% of the time throughout the year just to see what that happens. Might that be waking up a little bit earlier, going all the way through the night, thinking of a particular idea. Maybe it might be being a parent, right? It might be like, usually I give up after 45 minutes with my daughter because I go on my phone, so I need to get a dopamine hit. You might go, I'm going to challenge myself. No phone for today, for the weekend. What does that feel like? Would you challenge yourself? I hope you do, because there's a lot of learnings that come from that, even if you fail, which I did. And that's okay. As long as you're learning. As long as you're learning. Immortal Lights, I'll leave it there. I hope you have enjoyed this conversation. A little bit different, and it's more of what you can see in 2025. I'm going to be putting a lot more effort into a more variety of content that we've probably seen in the past. Our podcast conversation is still going to be occurring. Our book reviews are still going to be occurring. But there's more around the context of the mere mortals and learnings that maybe we can pass on to others. Others can pass on to us. And in return, we can give each other value. You can do that through sending through Boostergrams, streaming. The value for value model is still very much alive for us. But again, comment, interact, all those good things really help out. For now, me Immortal Lights, I'm going to leave it there. Be well wherever you are in the world. One, out.